Silver has always lived in gold's shadow. It's cheaper, it's messier, it's more industrial than symbolic. And because of that, most people assume it's simpler. Buy some silver. Wait. Sell it when the price spikes. But then the tax bill shows up. And suddenly, silver doesn't feel like a hedge anymore. It feels like a trap. So when people hear that wealthy investors seem to exit silver without paying much tax, or sometimes any, the suspicion kicks in fast. Is it illegal? Is it offshore? Is it just another system designed for people who already won? The truth is quieter than that. The wealthy aren't escaping taxes on silver. They're avoiding the moment where taxes get triggered in the first place. And silver, because of how it's taxed and how it behaves, gives them a very specific set of tools most people never think to use. Silver's first problem is classification. Like gold, most physical silver, bars, rounds, many coins, is treated as a collectible for U.S. tax purposes. That means if you hold it longer than a year, your gains can be taxed at rates higher than most stocks. Hold it for less than a year, and it's taxed as ordinary income. High earners can also owe the additional investment surtax on top of that. There's no special industrial exception, no "it's used in solar panels" discount, and no modern like-kind exchange option anymore. So if you buy silver at $15 an ounce and sell it at $30, the government wants a cut. This is where most people stop thinking. Wealthy investors don't. Because silver isn't usually held to be sold quickly. It's held to be useful. One of the most common ways the wealthy interact with silver is by never turning it into cash at all. Instead of selling during price spikes, they use silver as part of a broader balance sheet. Assets don't need to be sold to create liquidity. They can be pledged. They can be used to support credit. They can sit quietly while other assets do the heavy lifting. Borrowing against assets doesn't trigger a capital gain. Loans aren't income. And while interest and risk exist, taxes don't appear at the moment most people expect them to. Silver doesn't usually play the starring role here, but it doesn't have to. It only needs to exist as part of a larger picture that keeps selling unnecessary. Another difference with silver is where it often lives. Because silver is cheaper and more divisible, it's frequently accumulated over time rather than purchased in a single lump sum. That opens the door to holding silver exposure inside tax-advantaged accounts. Certain forms of silver qualify for retirement accounts when held through approved custodians and structures. And when gains happen inside those accounts, they don't show up on your tax return the way taxable account sales do. Traditional accounts defer taxes. Roth accounts can eliminate them entirely if rules are followed. The wealthy care deeply about this distinction. They don't ask, will silver go up? They ask, where should silver grow? Another quiet strategy revolves around something most people never associate with silver: giving it away. If someone already donates to charity, selling appreciated silver first is often the most tax-inefficient move possible. Sell silver. Trigger tax, donate the remainder. Instead, wealthy donors often contribute appreciated assets directly. When silver exposure is donated to a qualified charity or donor-advised fund, the gain typically disappears. The donor may receive a deduction based on value, and the charity sells without tax. The outcome looks magical from the outside, but it's just sequencing. Silver also benefits from something that feels almost unfair if you've never heard of it: time.
If silver is held long enough and never sold, it can pass to heirs with its cost basis reset to current market value. Years of appreciation vanish from the capital gains calculation. No sale, no realized gain, no tax due on the increase. This is why silver often sits untouched for decades in wealthy families. Not because they forgot about it, but because selling was never the point. Even when selling does happen, it's rarely done in isolation. Silver gains can be neutralized by losses elsewhere. A bad year in one asset can shield a good year in another. Tax loss harvesting isn't exciting. It doesn't trend, but it's incredibly effective. Losses offset gains. Unused losses roll forward, and timing smooths out the damage. This is why the wealthy track everything together. Silver doesn't live alone on a spreadsheet. It lives inside a system. There's also a misconception about silver funds and ETFs. Many investors assume that because silver trades under a ticker symbol, it must be taxed like a stock. That's not always true. Some silver funds are structured so investors are treated as if they own the underlying metal. That can bring collectible-style taxation back into play, even though the investment looks simple on the surface. The wealthy read the structure before they buy. Most people read the price chart. So what does all of this mean if you're not wealthy? It means silver itself isn't the problem. The problem is selling without a plan. Owning silver isn't taxable. Holding silver isn't taxable. Selling silver at a loss isn't taxable. Taxes appear only when gains are realized, and when, where, and why that happens matters far more than most people realize. The wealthy don't think in terms of flipping silver. They think in terms of not needing to. They hold it where it grows quietly. They use it without selling. They give it instead of cash. They pass it forward instead of cashing out. And when someone says, the rich sell silver without paying taxes, what they're really describing is this. The rich don't treat silver like a trade. They treat it like a piece of a machine designed to never force a sale. That's not cheating. That's design. This video is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, or investment advice. Always follow the law and consult qualified professionals for your personal situation.